Good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Gordon Causey, as always, live and unscripted this evening. It's now Sunday, the 25th of February, and it's just after 10:30. It's 10:34 p.m. Eastern Standard or Eastern Daylight Savings Time. I don't even know what we're on. I guess it's standard right now. In the coming weeks, we're going to be springing forward. I'm going to be talking tonight about the F Trudeau signs and flags. I see it most often on flags. But before I get going, let's deal with Candy. You want a treat? Candy, you want a treat? She's gone to lay down. Candy. Hey, puppy. Candy. Candy, do you want a treat? She's been off mood the past few days. Candy, come here, girl. I'm going to go see. No one's watching, so. Candy, you want a treat? You want a treat? Come on, girl. Yeah. Go get a treat. Yeah. Sorry about that. Not that no one's watching right now. Before I get going, I see I now have one. Going forward, I'm going to be doing these. I've been doing a lot of joke videos. I just did one of my favorite Jewish jokes. I'm going to have upcoming ones of my favorite Italian jokes and my favorite Newfie jokes, maybe Russian jokes. But on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, those 2 nights of the week, I'm going to do longer videos talking about issues that are on my mind. And I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk for a while. I've mentioned it before, the F Trudeau signs and flags. And I understand the sentiment behind them, and I agree with it 100%. I think 99% of the people tuning into my miserable, pathetic little channel are just can't wait for Trudeau to be gone, for him to either resign or be defeated in an election. Unfortunately, we may have to wait until all the way till September, October of 2025. We've got another. It's very possible that we could have another year and a half of it of Trudeau, the Trudeau Liberals governing this country. And during my last video like this, told a couple Trudeau jokes, and then talked about my take on the political situation in Canada. There was some live chat going on, which, by the way, the live chat is open. So if the one person watching, if you want to chime in, please do. I love the interaction. But someone came with the comment, and they offered up the opinion that the election, the 2021 election, and maybe even the 2019 election, that they were fixed, rigged, that the election had been stolen. And I think I understand where this sentiment comes from. And I think there's a tendency for all of us to exist within our echo chambers, within our own little bubbles. And so we tend to hang around with like-minded people. And so when the only people you're talking with and interacting with share your opinion, there is a tendency for people to think that the opinion that they hold, that it's a universal opinion, that it's overwhelmingly universal. However, myself personally, I live out in rural Ontario, southeastern rural Ontario, small town, 14,000 people, give or take, and a lot of farms, a very rural area. And this area is decidedly conservative in nature, although it should be noted that in 2015, my riding elected Kim Rudd, who was a Liberal. So this riding can be a bit of a swing riding. There are some individuals here who do commute into Toronto, not many, but there are some. To get downtown, you're looking at an hour and a half, give or take, and that's without traffic. So there's not a lot of commuters here, but there are some. And there's definitely a divide in this country between urban and rural. I've got Anna Monarchy back again. God bless you. Thank you for showing up again. I enjoyed our conversation last time. Sheriff of YouTube. So Anna Monarchy is saying that she's also in rural Ontario, that she's not far from Barrie. And that's nominal. Barrie to me is nominal GTA. Sheriff of YouTube grew up in Newmarket, which is, again, you're getting on the periphery, on the edge of the GTA. Sheriff of YouTube he's saying Bridge North, wherever. I'm not familiar with Bridge North. I'll throw out my town, Brighton. Again, little town of 14,000 people. I moved here in 2015. I was still in the Army at the time. I posted in. I'd been in Valcartier, Quebec from 2011 to 2015, and then I got posted to CFB Trenton. And which is an Air Force base, but I was Army. I was SIGOP, Royal Canadian Corps of signal operator, or RADOP, or just communications, whatever, stick whatever name you want on it you like. But the thing is, when it comes to defeating Justin Trudeau, I look at the polling numbers right now, and I don't think they're inaccurate. I do think they're probably pretty darn close. And right now, the Liberals under Trudeau are polling somewhere in and around 24%, which to my mind is far too high. He should be below where Ignatieff was back several elections ago, when the Liberals were reduced to third party status. They came in third after the Conservatives, the NDP, and then finally came the Liberals. And Trudeau should be even lower. And part of the reason why I think he's still maintaining, he's punching above his weight right now. And I think a large part of the reason is because people don't want, there are people, especially living in and around the major cities, who are very easily influenced by the way the media portrays right-wing conservative voters. Even I consider myself center-right. I don't consider myself on the extreme right, although I did vote PPC in the last two elections. And I think I think it would be helpful if we'd see less of these F Trudeau signs, because I genuinely believe that, especially in the urban centers where the Liberals still poll reasonably well, and I've got Al McGill saying good day, eh? And good day to you too, eh? The Liberals are still polling well in the urban centers, certainly in Montreal, in Toronto, even in and around Edmonton, Vancouver, certainly, maybe even around Regina or Saskatoon. They do well down east, although they're getting hammered now everywhere. But it's mainly in the populated centers. And the thing is, that's where the most seats are. Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, these are where there are a lot of seats available. And unless you're tuned into the sensibilities of urban Canada, if you're stuck in your bubble, in your echo chamber in small town, rural Alberta, Ontario, Saskatchewan, wherever, you don't get the same sense. And I mean, I'm an old fart, 57. In a few videos, I've said I'm 58. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll be 58 in July. I'm so old that when I hear someone say that I blew a tranny, I think that means that they had car trouble. It's insane the way the world has gone. but there's still a significant portion of the population that is programmed by our media, by the news. They watch CBC, CTV, Global Nightly News. And thanks, Sheriff of YouTube, I just heard it today from a guy I work with and couldn't wait to use it myself. I have no new material. Everything I sometimes repurpose jokes, but I have very few that are original. But at any rate, now you made me lose my train of thought. The joys of getting old. This, just getting back to the point. That's what no one ever called it the transmission. We just called it tranny. Do you have any tranny fluid? Goodness knows what tranny fluid is nowadays. And if you're in and around Toronto, there's still a lot of people, especially in the major centers, that are programmed what to think, how to feel, what to believe. And I actually don't think, I think Canadians have woken up by and large to the degree to which the news programs them. And they've seen the way that media has lied and has censored a lot of people, not all. I still think there are millions of people in this country who just get their marching orders from CBC News. I work with a guy like this. Dave is always kicking somewhere around 70 years of age. And I don't need to ask him what he thinks. All I have to do is read the CBC or watch a CBC News newscast, and I'll know exactly what he thinks. He's all in on the environment. It's a proven fact that climate change is being driven by carbon emissions, and you can't dissuade him from it one iota. Tried to. I did my best, and he goes, "Look, we should change topic because I'm just going to get mad." Because I represent everything that's wrong. And that's what he's been programmed to think about anyone who doesn't go along with the climate change narrative. And this whole idea that gender is just a societal construct. And you see the way the media does it when they'll have someone like Pierre Poilievre up on, he'll be doing a press conference and he will be asked by one of our woke liberal left media types, why is it that you and the Conservative Party support denying gender affirming care to vulnerable trans youth? And if you break that down, the way they ask these questions, why do you support denying? To deny something is bad. That's a negative. So you're denying gender affirming care. Affirming is good, denying is bad. To vulnerable transgender youth. Now you stick the adjective vulnerable in front of transgender youth, and now it's a form of, there's something in politics called push polling, where they plant seeds into the subconscious mind of the electorate, where they call people up and they say, what do you think Canada should do to stop the devastating toll of deadly climate change? And climate change is deadly, and it works on a lot of people. Got to catch up with what's being said. Sheriff of YouTube says climate change going to go up because every immigrant buys a truck as their first purchase. I don't know about that. Most people who come into this country, they tend to gravitate toward the large urban centers. It's mostly around Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary. The big urban centers is where most people tend to live. And I think you'll find you don't find many pickup trucks downtown. I have family in the GTA, Mississauga, make several trips a year, once every month or two at least. We're going down into the GTA. And so I am able to keep something of my finger on the pulse of what I'll call urban sensibilities. And myself, I spent most of my life growing up either in a major center or on the edge of it. Anna Monarchy is saying CBC shouldn't get our tax dollars. Polyev says he will defund them if elected. And that would be amazing. We don't, in today's digital age, we don't need CBC, CTV Global. We don't need these. CBC is entirely, it's a crown corporation. It's owned by the taxpayers of Canada. But now CBC, CTV Global, and the newspapers, Globe and Mail, Torstar, and others, they're getting something in the neighborhood of $300 to $400 million a year in taxpayer subsidies. And you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And this is one area where, on the one hand, the media has an enormous capacity to program and influence voter opinions and attitudes. And Polyev and the Conservatives saying they're going to defund them. To expect friendly coverage is almost null and void. It's not going to happen. Sheriff of YouTube says that I should just tell the kids I'm a pre-op lesbian, and they'll think you are cool. And Anna Monarchy is saying apparently climate change causes heart inflammation. Check out John Campbell. I know many of you guys watch him. He's a nurse practitioner with a YouTube channel, John Campbell, CAMPBELL. He is amazing. He just did a video within the last day or two showing that the Statistical Bureau in Great Britain that keeps track of excess deaths has now changed the manner in which they tabulate excess deaths. Canada, before in 2020, 2021, we were expected to have some, going forward, we were supposed to be having about 300,000 people a year dying. That was expected. It's about 7.8 to 7.9 deaths per 1,000 of population. People die. That's the expected level. But we've been punching about 10% higher than that. More people are dying than are expected in Canada, in the UK, in the United States, all over the place. And this is a big part of the reason why I think a lot of Canadians have woken up, because you got to remember, not everyone pays hyper close attention to the political scene in Canada. A lot of people only wake up when there's an election going on. And I forget, someone here mentioned about Jack Layton and how during the election when Jack Layton, that they just thought he seemed like a good guy. You know, they liked the way Jack Layton was. And a lot of people approach politics in that fashion. And when they see conservatives waving this F Trudeau sign, not everyone likes profanity. I personally, I would never want the flag banned or made illegal because I'm something of a free speech absolutist, but I think it would serve the interests of conservatives better if there were less of those flags flying around and more substantive complaints against Trudeau, not just F Trudeau. You know, why don't I like Trudeau? He promised he'd balance the budget. He lied. He disrespected the native population, firing Jody Wilson-Raybould, a highly accomplished First Nations woman who was the Attorney General, all because she wouldn't give a sweetheart deal to his corporate buddies with SNC-Lavalin. He got on a plane or a helicopter and took gifts from the Aga Khan, whose charitable foundation receives millions of dollars from Canadian taxpayers. You know, and you can go on and on. His blackface. There are tons of issues to hammer Trudeau with without waving a flag. Let me catch up with some of what's being written. Anna Monarchy. I've watched videos of big rubbery clots being pulled out of cadavers. That became common after. We're not going to say it because of community standards and all that. But if you watch John Campbell's videos, he actually shows these rubbery clots that embalmers, morticians, those who work in the funeral home industry and have to prepare these cadavers. And this is one reason why a lot of Canadians, why Trudeau is so low. A lot of Canadians, millions of Canadians opted not to get the shot. And it's well within the bounds of community standards for me to cite what Anthony Housefeather, Liberal parliamentary secretary, said during committee hearings. He said that the reason that Canadians are not allowed to see the contracts that have been signed with Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and the pharmaceutical companies, you and I are not allowed to see these contracts. And the reason is because the government asked the pharmaceutical companies to rush the development of these quote unquote vaccines without doing the normal, they didn't do the work that would normally be done. And so they were exposing themselves to incredible risk. And so you and I cannot see the contracts that Canada signed. So much for Trudeau's promise to be open and transparent. And you can check that out on Anthony Housefeather's rcommons.ca.gov.ca. It's a government website, and it gives transcripts of what was written. I have it as a pinned video. If you go to my tab where it says videos, I did a video reading through exactly what Anthony Housefeather said to a House of Commons committee. Continuing to now, Sheriff of YouTube is saying, I am 100% I am non, myself personally, I am non-COVID vax. It's in the Army. I had to have MMR, polio, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, DTaP, which I think is the tetanus shot. I had to have all those. But when it came to this, and now, seriously, if it was, I now question things far more than I ever did before. I was far more blindly trusting with respect to pharmaceutical products before the COVID era. Now I am incredibly skeptical. Now I have learned that Pfizer had a drug on the market called Bextra, Bextra. It was an anti-inflammatory drug that was approved as a safe and effective medication from 2000 to 2005. And then after 2005, it had to be withdrawn from the market because of deaths and heart issues that people were having. Sheriff of YouTube is saying, I like the truck. Nice use of TR instead of F. He likes the flags. I'm going to ask yourself to put yourself in my shoes for a second. I have a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old now is my youngest. And we were on the overpass 2 years ago. So at that time he was 8, and there were these flags being waved. Not every parent wants to expose their child to what is a blatant profanity. Just a little bit about my own character. Back, I guess it would have been 2010, 2011. My now wife, then girlfriend, and I were at a fireworks display, and we were walking back toward our cars, a large group of people after the fireworks had gone off. And there was a gentleman in front of me. He had 2 or 3 kids who were all like 3, 4, 5, 6 years of age, in and around that age. And then behind me were a group of 4 or 5 teenagers, and everything was an F-bomb this and an F-bomb that. Well, I tried to call my effing girlfriend, but she wouldn't answer the effing phone, and F and F and F and F and F. And I could see the gentleman with the young kids, kind of his back was up a little bit. And I turned around to the kids and I said, guys, pointed up to the kids, there are kids around, clean it up a bit. And one of them went, sorry, sir. And I said, if there were no kids around, who cares? But they're kids. Come on. And they cleaned it up. And the gentleman turned around to me and he said, thank you. That's the point I would just get out. When you wave a flag like that or a sign, and it's, you know, publicly available. Not everyone wants to be exposed to that. I am not saying I would support banning it, because again, I'm a free speech absolutist. But with that being said, I think discretion is the better part of valor. Um, I like it. Sheriff of YouTube is saying that he likes it now that everywhere Trudeau's goes, people scream at him. I would like to see protests wherever he goes, but minus the profanity. He was in Belleville, which isn't far from where I live, and someone was calling Trudeau a puke, Puke, you lousy puke. And someone online got the audio, and they tried to make you believe he was saying you lousy Jew instead of puke. And when someone's screaming, sometimes you can be programmed what to think a sound actually says. There's a comedian who does it famously with lyrics. You know, the Pointer Sisters sing a song where they say, "I'm begging you for mercy," but he tells you that it's I'm something about bird seed, and when you hear it after he tells you that, you hear bird seed instead of mercy. I'm going to keep reading. I haven't had so much as a flu shot since 2008. I never had a flu shot. That was one thing I woke up to probably in and around 2007, 8, somewhere around there. I think it was H1N1. And the Ontario government tried to mandate healthcare workers, specifically nurses and EMTs, tried to mandate that they tried to require them to get the flu shot. And their unions fought back against it. They didn't want to be forced to take the flu shot. And I remember taking a step back and going, wait a minute, these are medical professionals, nurses and EMT, emergency medical services, ambulance drivers and such. The medical professionals don't want to take it. And one of the point that the unions for the nurses and the EMS made was that doctors were not being mandated to take it. So why are we? And I'm going, wait a minute, doctors aren't mandated to take, why aren't they mandated to? And I had never had a flu shot prior, and I've never had one since. I've got to read. I haven't had so much of a flu shot. And the monarchy is libertarian all the way. Personally, I get amusement out of the F Trudeau flags, though I am also averse to public profanity mostly. It's one of those things where I think most of us, myself included, whether we'll fly the flag or not, we recognize the sentiment and agree with the sentiment behind it. I just think there are better ways to express it. And with the ultimate goal of taking that 24% of the population who would still mark an X next to a Liberal candidate, I'd like to get that below 20. I don't think we can go much below. I think 18 is the kind of the bottom we could get to, because I mean, there are people, a lot of people my own age, they've only ever voted Liberal, and they'll never vote for any other party other than the Liberal Party. So I don't think you can get it down to 0, but I would love to see us get them down below 20. And I think if we can do that, I think then the pressure from within his own caucus, the sitting members, that he could be ousted. He could be pressured into leaving. And Monarchy is saying, here's the safety data sheet from the box of vaccine vials, blank. Let's call it a printer error. I never actually saw, I've seen video evidence of it, where you open the little box, and every one of us who's opened a box of medication anytime in our lives, you get this huge mammoth poster. It's got to be 3-4 feet wide, it's got to be about 3 feet square or 4 feet square, massive piece of paper with all kinds of technical data and ingredients and what have you. And I've seen loads of examples of people opening them up online and showing them to be 100% both sides blank, nothing on them. I haven't myself actually seen it though. And Monarchy, someone around here might have been Newmarket. Some might have been Newmarket. Any in this area, someone threw a handful of pebble at Trudeau. I hope he didn't get too much time. I didn't hear about that. And I don't advocate that in any way, shape, or form. You don't fight fire with fire. The best way to defeat Trudeau is at the ballot box. And the best thing we can do is send his polling numbers so far down that his caucus revolts against him. I mean, they have no legal mechanism. I've said before, I did study political science at university, and I'm a lifelong political junkie. That doesn't mean I know everything, but I'm not going to sell myself short either. I do know a fair bit about the political process. And as things sit, within the Liberal Party constitution, and it's actually the same with the Conservatives, when a leader leads his party to victory and they form the government, either minority or majority, then there's no mechanism by which they can automatically get rid of the leader. However, like after every election with the Conservatives or the Liberals, if they lose, if they do not form the government, then they are subject to an automatic leadership review where every card-carrying party member either votes in favor or against that individual's leadership, whether it be Andrew Scheer with the Conservatives or Andrew Scheer or Aaron O'Toole. In both cases, they resigned before that leadership review could take place. Same thing happened with Stéphane Dion with the Liberals, with Michael Ignatieff. Ignatieff stepped down before the leadership review could take place. That's typically what happens. When a Liberal or a Conservative loses an election, rather than go to a leadership review, they simply resign. So seldom do you see them. Stephen Harper, though, when he ran his first election as leader of the newly unified Conservative Party of Canada, he lost the first election he fought against Paul Martin. Paul Martin only won a minority, and there was a leadership review. He had enough support from within the party to continue as leader. So the point I'm getting at is because Trudeau won the 2021 election, there's no the Liberal Party constitution does not have a mechanism for the members to get rid of him. All they can do is put pressure on him, and that pressure counts for something, though. I've got to keep reading. And Marquis Trudeau, yeah. Sheriff of YouTube is bringing up that point about Trudeau having a striking resemblance to Fidel Castro. I've gone down that rabbit hole a bit, not saying it's impossible, but from everything I understand, Maggie Trudeau never visited Cuba prior to Justin Trudeau's birth. But it's still a funny it's still hilarious. And Pierre Trudeau's politics notwithstanding, there was no questioning the man had, in my mind. He was smart. He was a sharp cookie. I didn't like his politics, but with that being said, I'll acknowledge that the man had some brains. His son, the apple fell a mile away from the tree. Justin Trudeau has no brains. Sheriff YouTube, I never had any shot since I was a kid. In 87, yellow fever. Got the shot to go to the Dominican Republic. That's why a lot of people got the COVID shot. It's because they needed to go visit a dying relative, or they needed to work, or they needed to take their kids to hockey, and they got their kid jabbed so that they could play hockey, and they put blind faith in the pharmaceutical industry. And now we have it from Canada's own government during parliamentary committee sessions that the vaccines, the COVID shots, did not receive the testing that would normally take place. And so because of that, we're not even allowed to see the contracts. And any member of parliament who wants to see the contracts has to sign a non-disclosure agreement so they can never talk about what they've seen. Sheriff of YouTube, I got tetanus shot in 1990. And see, my medical degree comes from Facebook and the internet. I've had tetanus shots before. Used to be years ago, someone stepping on a rusty nail would be at risk of potentially losing a limb. And now with tetanus shots, that doesn't happen. Sheriff of YouTube, I would never take any shots against any common flu. Well, the one thing is with the flu, as with COVID, there are always so many variants around. And one thing I've read is that they had given up trying to develop any type of vaccine for any type of coronavirus, simply because coronaviruses as a family of viruses, that they mutate so quickly that you can never get in front of it. And that was why there was never, there's MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory System, the common cold. There's SARS, the first SARS that happened sometime around 2005 to 2006 when Toronto, we had the Rolling Stones and AC/DC came to the Downsview Airport and gave a big free concert with the reworked Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman kind of reformed the Guess Who. But anyway, Sheriff of YouTube, I don't think he should take eggs in the head very often. I like Trudeau as a typical midlife crisis Frenchman. He will soon move to the Riviera. The guy's worth $500 million. It's insane what's happened to his net worth. From what I understand, what I've read, he inherited something like $2-3 million in his trust fund, and now he's worth significantly more than that. I don't know if it's 500 million, but that wouldn't surprise me. And yeah, anti-monarchy, call him a trust fund baby. Fortunately, this is the kind of situation we're in. It seems like politically in Ontario, we have Doug Ford. His daddy had a big company and made boatloads of money, and we got Ford. And federally, we've got Trudeau, two trust fund kids. Anti-monarchy is, don't worry about the typos. The lack of government and pharmaceutical companies' transparency is quite telling, hugely telling. Sheriff of YouTube, and all the kids were given H1N1 vaccines, not mine. And I wouldn't go. I did a podcast a while ago. One of these days I'll drag it up and post a link to it if anyone wants to watch. I did it with a buddy of mine down in South Carolina. It's his podcast. And Robert Malone. And I know opinions vary on Robert Malone because he is credited with being one of the creators, inventors of mRNA and DNA vaccines. It was back in like 1987. He was working at a place called the Salk Institute, which you have to be a genius to go work there. And he made at least one key discovery that without that discovery, mRNA vaccines never would have been made. But he made a very interesting point. I mean, to be an autonomous individual and to make your own decisions, put yourself in the shoes of someone who maybe didn't even graduate high school, who's sitting there watching the news and they're telling you the deadly coronavirus, and you're seeing people going into hospital and being hooked up to ventilators, and this panic porn media coverage that we saw. And then they come out with this magic shot that's going to protect you, save you from that. And maybe you question it, but is it, are you willing to take the risk? And then if something bad happens to you from SARS-CoV-2, and people are always looking for a shortcut way to make very difficult decisions easy. Got to keep reading. Al McGill is saying, I live in an NDP riding now on the subject of flags. I have a Freedom Convoy 2022 flag hanging in my window. The NDP wanted me to take down my flag. I said, sorry, but no. Good for you. God bless. You know, the way that Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau disrespected the hardworking Canadian men and women who stood up for our constitutional rights, for our right to bodily autonomy, for our right to free speech, and the way they disrespected them was absolutely mind-blowing. It was disgusting. And Jagmeet Singh, I had a degree of respect for him prior to that, when he first became leader of the NDP, but it is all gone. He's got zero. Right, I do think he's smarter than Trudeau, but that doesn't take much. Candy the Wonder Pup is smarter than Trudeau. Sheriff of YouTube is saying his father's family owned an oil company. Pierre Trudeau's father owned Imperial oil gas stations in and around Montreal, 5 or 6, 3 or 4, I forget how many. He owned a number of gas stations, and that was the start. That's where the Trudeau family money came from. They were part of the upper French, so they were the Quebecers, generally speaking, tended to be very poor. They were the working class in Quebec, but even though most were working class, there was an elite within French society, and the Trudeaus were one of them. Now, all the kids would go to l'Académie Berbeuf, which is a private school for rich French kids. Pierre Trudeau went there. Justin Trudeau went there. Sheriff of YouTube is saying 2007-ish. I don't know what 2007-ish means. Al McGill is saying he agrees with me on the F Trudeau flags. Now, I don't have any problem with the flag that says Freedom Convoy, that is devoid of any profanity. And again, in terms of the F Trudeau sign, I certainly empathize with the sentiment behind it. I just don't like the expression. I have a young kid. There are people out there with kids, with grandkids, and it hurts the conservative cause or the anti-Trudeau cause, if you will, when there are people sitting there and it'll get their back up and it'll push them more toward voting for Trudeau just because they're going to say, I don't want to be associated with those foul-mouthed, profane individuals trashing all over Trudeau. And a monarchy, I hung a regular Canadian flag outside my door during the Freedom Convoy. Still got it there. It's a blatant act of rebellion against tyranny these days, apparently, to fly a Canadian flag. That came out during the convoys, that some Canadians were saying they didn't like seeing Canadian flags, that they thought, all of a sudden the Canadian flag, our beautiful maple leaf, became a symbol of hate to some people. No, it was a symbol of not giving in to fear. The people of Ottawa, who were scared to death of the convoy, the primary reason for their fear was over the fact that people were living normal and hugging and laughing and dancing and and not living in fear. And that annoyed and that terrified the COVIDians, the COVIDiots, who they wanted everyone to share their fear of this little respiratory bug. Trudeau, and a monarchy says Trudeau isn't a prime minister, he's a drama queen. He's not even a good drama queen. I mean, he's so phony, it's disgusting. People in Toronto at least were getting pulled over for having them on their cars after they were part of the protest. What, a Canadian flag or the F Trudeau sign? Sheriff of YouTube is pro-profanity against Trudeau the tyrant. The only point I'm making is that if the ultimate goal is to send Trudeau crashing as low as possible, I am suggesting that there are better ways to do it. Sheriff of YouTube retracted a message. You can't offend me. I'm too old. Al McGill has an 11-year-old granddaughter. You know, this is the thing. We're being told that our views are unacceptable if we don't want our daughters and our granddaughters to share a locker room with a man. And that's considered hateful by Trudeau. Let's talk about those things. Forget the F Trudeau sign. Let's talk about that. Do you think it's reasonable for a parent or a grandparent not to want their daughter or granddaughter to share a shower, change room, bathroom with a man? Or are you with Trudeau on that and think that wanting to protect your daughter and your granddaughter, you think that's hateful? Are you with Trudeau there? And I think we can win a lot more people, pull a lot more people away from Trudeau and the Liberals in that fashion than by waving that flag. Sheriff of YouTube, message retracted again. You're becoming a one-string banjo. You like the flags. I got it. And Marky likes the Canadian flags. I love the Canadian flag. I served under it. Wore it on my uniform. Yeah, this is an incredible country, and Trudeau's ruining it. And we've got to fight back, but fight back effectively. And some of you will probably have heard of the book Sun Tzu's Art of War. And one of the key elements of the art of war is know your enemy. And Sheriff of YouTube says, I like living on the edge as your friend. I mean, unless I know you, we've probably never met. I'm assuming. I mean, I live in such a small little area. But Sun Tzu, The Art of War, know your enemy. And you've got to understand the sensibilities of the urban, woke, left individual. And that, I think, is a good wedge in, a good way to wedge your way into a conversation with one of these types of individuals, is to say, do you think it's unreasonable for a parent or a grandparent to want to protect their daughter or granddaughter from having to share shower facilities, change rooms, bathrooms with men? Do you think that's unreasonable? I mean, this whole transgender stuff drives me balmy. And I left the Army in June of 2021, started working again in a retail environment May of 2022. And I just found out today that a new employee who has just come in, who reminded me upon meeting this individual reminded me of Pat from SNL fame. If you don't know that, just Google or YouTube search SNL Pat. Pat was a character maybe in the 90s, I think. And Pat, you could never decide whether Pat was a guy or a girl. And it was very funny. Well, I just found out that an individual with whom I work is a female who has transitioned to being a male. And I was like, oh my God. And that's where I got the line. That's where a colleague hit me with that line of, remember when blowing a tranny meant you had car trouble? Anna Monarchy is saying, I somewhat flipped through The Art of War when someone had it sitting around. It was interesting. It's very interesting. The manner in which the way you conduct war is number one, you have to know your enemy. And the second most broad-based rule is deception. For example, when your military force is strong, you want to appear weak. Deceive your opponent. You're in a strong position, you want to appear weak. And when you're in a weak position, that's when you want to appear to be strong. And when your military force is close, is near, you want it to appear as if it's far away. And when you're far away, you want to appear near. It's all about deception. And politics is war. Politics is war, and Trudeau's going down. I'll never say never, because anything can happen. A month is a lifetime in politics, and we've got a year and a half to put it, to go through possibly. But I think if Trudeau's polling numbers could drop below 20, that there could be a revolt within the caucus, and he could be forced out. The caucus could make life unworkable for him. So I'm just going to read up what the last few messages are. Sheriff of YouTube, don't say any more. Actually, I'm wrapping up. Just because your videos could go viral. The Trudeau joke one, the first one I did, has gotten about 30,000 views. Insane for a miserable, pathetic channel like this. I like these guys. Amonarchy, the local jail here in Penetanguishene had a girl on a guy's range who identified as trans, and I was told her testosterone shots made her angry and aggressive, and she attacked a guy pointlessly. I don't like the term trans. I don't like the word biological. Like, it's been brought out that, the Conservative Party thinks that locker room type facilities should be restricted to biological males. No, there's only one type. There's no such thing. It's men and it's women. To say a biological male, is there another kind of male other than a biological male? It's redundant. There's one type of man, a man. There's one type of guy, a guy. You don't have to put any adjectives in front of it, because a trans guy, if their chromosomes are YY, then they are female. End of story. There's no, gender is not a societal construct. The fabric of reality determines what your gender is. If you're XY, you're a man. If you're YY, you're a woman. End of story. And they have this new term out. They call it I've had someone say to me, well, you're coming at this as a cisgendered male. And they were surprised to see that I knew what the term meant. And I said, no, I'm not a cisgendered male. I'm a male. This term cis, CIS, denotes that I'm a person who was born male and chose to identify as male. No, I don't get to choose. No one gets to choose. Just because we have the pharmacological capacity and the surgical capacity to mutilate bodies does not make it ethically right. The local, just reading off the last few. If I was in jail, I would like testosterone shots. Yeah. Make you hyper aggressive to survive. And Monarchy is saying female is, I hope I didn't screw up. I do that from time to time. It's a function of my age. You're right. XX is female. XY is male. The Y, we're all born X. Everyone starts out as X. And then it's the sperm, which either brings in another X, making us female, or a Y, making us male. The story gets deeper because of the last 20 years. I watched a video by a biologist, and it opened my mind a bit for the younger people now involved. I feel sorry for the kids growing up in today's world. I didn't have to put up with this. I genuinely, I pray for my youngest and the world he's growing up into. It's uh, it's a scary world, where we've abandoned. I go to church. I'm a Christian. I've made that profession many times on this channel, but I recognize that we live in a post Christian world. But more than that, we live in a post truth world. The true objective reality is now secondary to subjective feelings. Can't believe I messed up the XXXY. Should bugs me. But anyway, I'm going to end it there because I've gone on for nearly an hour. The next one I'll be doing will be on Wednesday. Different topic, whatever comes up into my head over the next few days. And in between, I am going to throw out a couple more short, little, less than 10-minute videos. Going to do one with Italian jokes. Going to do one with a couple Newfie jokes because, Lord, I went to Newfoundland. I got down to Newfoundland. I went to Rocky Harbor and St. John's, and I haven't had the chance to use my good Newfie accent. But Lord, I tell you, I got a good one. I can do the Newfie accent like I'm falling off a log. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you want to like, I've got 7 already. Thank you. And if anyone watches this who isn't subscribed and wants to, you're most welcome. We'll talk to you later. Amonarchy, Sheriff of YouTube, Al McGill, and everyone and anyone I missed. Thank you so much for chiming in. This could get a little crazy if more people start watching. But again, Wednesdays, Sundays is when I'm going to be doing these, right around 10:30 and around that time. Talk to you later. God bless.